Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series. Bit of a later upload than I normally do. Life got the better of me on that one. But anyways, we're talking about how to counter Syn aggro in today's video. Deck's picking up a lot of popularity, and it seems to really just be pushing out Syn control. We've been seeing much more Syn aggro than control over the past few weeks. And yeah, that could be due to best of one and all that good stuff. But if it's a deck that's going to be popular, you might as well know how to play against it, right? So before we get into it, I do have a new sponsorship with yourplaymat.com. They sent me these super sweet custom sleeves, super sturdy, super firm. I can't wait to use them in my next event. Pretty sure it's going to be in July, so hopefully I see you guys down there in Florida. But anyways, if you guys want custom sleeves, playmats, any of your TCG needs, go down to yourplaymat.com in the description. Get you 10% off your order. It does help the channel out. That being said, let's get started. Alright, so we always talk about what the deck aims to do that we're trying to counter, because if you don't know what the deck does, not really going to be super effective in learning how to counter it. So Syn Shenron, a deck we've seen since set 10, normally a control mid-range deck, but over the past several sets, it's just been getting support after support. So now the deck is able to mold and form to whatever it wants to do, whether it wants to be aggro, control, mid-range. The deck can do a lot of different things. So what are some of the things it does with the aggro version? Well, you got Rage Shenron, Electromancer, you're very general, take a life, and gain critical plus power. And then you have Nova Shenron and you have Omega Shenron allies absorbed, all of which cost 1 energy. Even though it says 2-drop, 4-drop, 8-drop, they all end up costing Syn Shenron 1 energy. Nova Shenron revives your other low-cost dragons. Omega Shenron can copy your other dragons that they have in the drop area. Sometimes a critical, sometimes a dual attacker, sometimes a barrier blocker. So they do all these things that cost very little energy. Now, compare that to other aggro decks, where other aggro decks do a lot of things for free a lot of the time. So it is relevant that Syn does these things that cost energy, albeit it's only 1 energy. It's not really all that much. There are some things that Syn does for free we'll talk about in just a second. But the fact that this all costs energy, you can sort of take advantage of that. And we'll talk about that later on in the video. But anyways, now this is what Syn does for free, and this is essentially their win con. So they're going to aim to awaken at 2 life. A lot of their cards now help them take life to get down to 2. They're going to awaken, play Pan, Great Ape Whisper, and a lot of their cards they play, like Omega plus Nova or other dragons are able to play, help them get to Cell Xeno very easily. And a lot of times, pretty much 99% of the time, they're playing Cell Xeno before turn 5. So Pan, Great Ape Whisper is there to basically give Cell Xeno that second quadruple strike swing, which is honestly insane. Like, the regular stuff that Syn does is not too overwhelming for a lot of decks. I mean, some decks, yeah, 30k beat and 15k beat is somewhat tough to deal with, but Cell Xeno is certainly puts the deck over the top. So we're talking about how to counter the dragon stuff. We'll also talk about how to counter the Cell Xeno stuff. All right, firstly, Super Kamehameha and the counterplays like this. I've been talking about these counterplays a lot over the past several videos if you've been watching. This is not a card I'm going to say you slot in just for Syn Shenron, but it's a card you may already be playing in like your Dark Broly's or maybe your red and green decks. I think the cards like Super Kamehameha have so much reach, and they are applicable in the Syn Shenron matchup. When they're going to play Nova Shenron, its cost is reduced to 1, so Super Kamehameha can hit that card. And when they're going for the Cell Xeno Pan, Great Ape Whisper play, you're going to be at 4 less life. They're just going to put so much pressure onto you with their 30k battle cards, 15k battle cards. You're going to be at 4 less life, so you're going to be able to activate this so you can respond to the play of Pan, Great Ape Whisper. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind when you're going to try and use counters against Syn Shenron, especially on their awakened turn, they're going to be playing some number of Swift Retaliation Coolers, which can stop a card like Super Kamehameha. But again, what I mentioned is you're almost always going to be at 4 less life when this card's relevant. So with that in mind, you can use this for free. So if they cooler it, you should have other available energy for other negates, other floodgates, whatever you might have at your disposal. The other thing too, when you're facing a quadruple striker down, it doesn't really matter if you go below 4 life, right? Like, if you get quadruple strike at 4 life versus getting quadruple strike at 2 life, well, the 2 life situation is you have 2 more cards to try and defend that quadruple strike. Now, that's not a perfect stream of logic because they do have triple strikers in the deck. They do have just other beatdown cards in the deck. But if you're in the scenario where they've exhausted all their resources and Cell Xeno is the last thing they have to kill you on that turn, that's more the situation that I'm talking about, where all their energy's tapped out on turn 3 and they're going for the Cell Xeno play. Or even if they're not all tapped out, if you play Super Kamehameha and they cooler you, and then you have other cards to stop the Cell Xeno, that's where this type of thing is going to shine, where you can use this card for free, go down to maybe 3, 2, or 1 life. That's going to be a really high value play. Next up, we have cards like Testing the Opposition, much in the same vein. When Cell Xeno is the last card they need to kill you, and they've already exhausted their cooler, or maybe they don't have enough energy for cooler, things like that, Testing the Opposition is going to be an automatic Cell Xeno stopper, right? Because they'll attack with Cell Xeno the first time, you negate, and they're going to use Pan to restand it. Well, now you have a blocker, and they don't really have too many ways to rest cards, especially not in the combo step. Like, in set 13, they might start playing Power of a Super Saiyan, which I don't even know if they will, because being an aggro version of the deck, they probably want to tap a lot of their energy, so they won't have the available energy to use Power of a Super Saiyan. But besides that, they don't have many ways to tap your blocker outside the combo steps. They're gonna have to go for that second Cell Xeno swing, and you just block it, you're all set. Again, keep in mind, this is in the situation where they've exhausted all their other resources, and Cell Xeno is the last thing they want to kill you with. But anyways, we'll talk about other cards that help before that situation as we go through the video. Alright, Kikibora Broken Seal. Here's one of those cards. Now, Kikibora fell out of favor in Best of 1. It was played pretty heavily in Best of 1 just a few months ago, but then Dark Broly fell out of flavor. Kikibora is relatively decent at dealing with Dark Broly. Nowadays, Dark Broly can sort of play around Kikibora, but this is not a video talking about Dark Broly. Syn Shenron, though, is actually pretty predictable in what it does. Like, it's going to always rely on the 8-drop Omega Shenron, it's going to always rely on the 4-drop Nova, and it's going to use those two primary pieces to get into Cell Xeno. So you can use Kikibora on whatever piece they're missing, especially 8-drop Omega. If they don't have Omega on board, he is one of their main playmakers. So you're going to call 8-drop Syn, because I do believe that he's actually a Syn Shenron card, not actually named an Omega Syn Shenron. So you're going to call 8-drop Syn. That's going to prevent their Omega Shenron allies absorb. It's also going to prevent their TP promo Omega Shenron. That's a 1-drop triple striker. So Kikibora can do a lot of work in this matchup. And again, it just got good reach against other matchups. So it's a card you might want to be main deck teching in Best of 1. Next up, we have board wipes. So I was actually testing with a patron the other night, and he was playing Red Gogeta. I was playing Syn Aggro because he wanted to test against it. And one thing I noticed was his 5-drop Gogeta with the minus 15 to my board was actually a very impactful play, because besides Omega Shenron, I have a lot of 15Ks. You have Nova Shenron, you have Piggy Shenron, which I can't remember the name of, and then you have other small Shenrons like Rage. So that board wipe is very impactful. So I was just looking at other board wipes, and you know, obviously depending on what deck you're playing, you might have access to different board wipes, but a very couple general ones: Kami Global Unifier and Goku Concentrated Destruction. They do cost 3 energy though. They are kind of costly, but if you have certain floodgates like Violent Rays, Topo, things of that nature, getting to turn 3 is not going to be very impossible. Yes, they are especially better if you win the dice roll, which obviously is going to happen about 50% of the time, or should happen 50% of the time. So with that in mind, these cards can be quite good in dealing with Syn's board. And again, it costs them energy to go back into their different cards to build up to Cell Xeno. Cell Xeno is free, but getting there is not free. It does cost them energy. So if you take away a ton of their energy with the battle cards, they're gonna have a tough time getting back up to Cell Xeno and winning the game. So pretty good to consider there if you're thinking about teching them for other matchups as well. Like Kami, I probably wouldn't say put in for only Syn, but it can be good against King Piccolo in certain scenarios. And then Concentrated Destruction Goku, that's a card you're probably playing in red for like Invoker and other barrier threats. So it's got some dual purpose there. Next up, talking about Dark Broly Demon Realm Ravager. I'm not meaning to just talk about Dark Broly here. What I am meaning to talk about here is drop area interruption, which is mostly going to be applicable to black decks. So like I mentioned before, Syn doesn't really play overwhelms because they rely on their drop area. So having drop area interruption can be very good, especially to mess with their Nova Shenron plays. So having some sort of drop interruption, whether you are Dark Broly, maybe you're playing Shroom Salsa, or maybe you're playing a black deck where you have some sort of tech that removes your opponent's drop area, or even Kikibora in set 13. You have a lot of ways to deal with your opponent's drop area, so removing their key pieces is great. Also, by leaving them at less than 7 dragons in the drop, you prevent them from playing their 8-drop TP Omega Shenron triple strikers, so that can be a very helpful strategy as well. And Bergamo Ferocious Roar, this mostly just represents, you know, playing a yellow deck against Syn Shenron. So whether you're playing Mecha, whether you're playing Blue Yellow Gohan, whether you're playing some sort of set 13 yellow deck, being able to tap Syn's energy with like a Zamasu plus Bergamo or any other play you can make that happen with is very effective, because once again, they need energy to play their battle cards, and if they don't have the energy to play battle cards, they can't play Cell Xeno for free. So being able to tap their energy, getting that battle interruption is super solid. And then finally, last but not least, I wanted to leave just like the floodgate cards for last, because this might be the most obvious. Floodgates are obviously good against aggro decks. That's generally what they're used for. But, you know, you have cards like Topo Righteous Aid, you have cards like Heroic Prospect Trunks, cards like Vegeta Unison of Fury, Trunks and Vegeta, obviously punishing your opponent for attacking with battle cards greater than their energy cost, which Syn is almost always going to be doing, at least up to like turn 4. Most of their battle cards they'll be attacking with are going to be higher than the energy cost. I remember playing in the Miami event in January, playing Blue Yellow Gohan, playing against Syn Aggro, and Vegeta Unison of Fury bought me several turns. So definitely a solid card. Just look at the floodgate your color has, but again, watch out for Swift Retaliation Cooler. That's what I was talking about with Super Kamehameha. You don't want to just get blown out by Swift Retaliation Cooler. Maybe see if you can bait them into tapping a bit more of the energy, but if they're coming at you with the Cell Xeno, odds are you probably can't do that, but you kind of got to feel out the matchup. But anyways, guys, Floodgates, obviously very good against aggro. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do want to know in the comments below if you have any other recommendations for dealing with aggro Syn. Let's all help each other out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.